Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Great show today. We're going into the world of professional bodybuilding again. And I know you guys are like, Dre, please. Look, let me explain something to you. Just like you guys watch basketball and golf and all that, bodybuilding is still a sport. And more people now are gravitating to it more than ever. It's lucrative as far as money. Totally different than when I competed. Totally different because there was not a lot of opportunities for women. Let's call it what it is, and opportunities for men because it was called professional bodybuilding. It was all about how much muscle could you pack on and dominate. But then they realized that they had to open up the doors because everybody wasn't feeling that. And so it opened up a lot of doors, a lot of age brackets for individuals. But what I like about it, even though I've seen the evolution of bodybuilding change, is that it did something what I've always got into the sport for day one, to challenge myself. Somebody asked me this the other day. They was like, what sports do you like out of all the sports that you play? I like track and field. Those that know, I was a 1984 Olympic candidate. I like track and field, but it was the first time I ever suffered an injury, which led to bodybuilding. I played some of my pro football, but bodybuilding really took all of the pain and stuff that I was going through that I kept locked inside. I was able to channel it and manifest it into something totally beautiful. But then what I realized, a lot of people wasn't understanding the benefits of what it brought to them, not just relieving things that you're going through, but it allows you to be healthier. And that's what we see now in this sport. We see it now being treated as a new way of treating medicine. And instead of going to medicine, go in the gym and work out and see what you can gain out of this. And we got a young lady on the show today who's definitely done that. So let me tell you where we're going with this. I turned pro at a young age in professional bodybuilding, but I knew I wasn't going to make any money as a professional bodybuilder. Let's cut it. I'm gonna just cut through the chase. I know how the system works. I know how the sport works. I know the ins and outs. But the realistic thing is, I achieved the goals that I wanted to achieve. So I wound up doing what I had something already lined up. But let's go even deeper here with this particular story. Imagine going through life with some type of addiction, alcohol. Imagine losing your father, watching his body shut down as you understand it and you're evolving with your health journey. But you see the one man that was your rock. The first boyfriend is what I call it. When you're a female, your first love is your father. Your first boyfriend is your father. Now you're seeing the strongest man basically crumbling in front of you, and there's nothing you can do about it because we all have an expiration date. But then on top of that, you're still trying to be a single mom. You have now 2 daughters, and you're trying to instill with them strength, stability, work ethic, and the dream that even though you're a woman, a single woman, that you can still do this. When the odds seem against you, you can still do this. So without further ado, let's welcome to the show. I know you're seeing her all over social media. I'm going to give her dues. IFBB Pro, professional bodybuilding, Miss Jessica Coleman. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Andre, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that.
Man, 47 years old, first bodybuilding show at 40, your first one at 44, 46, and you're still kicking ass. But before we go there with this journey, let's go back before this journey began because you had to overcome a lot of things to get to this pinnacle. And my hats off to you because I know what it takes to get to these pinnacles in
Yeah.
any sport and even in the workplace. I know it takes, this is what I told people success is to me. Now, I'm not going to say that for the end, but we're going to get to what success is because this is it on a piece of paper. This is that beast mindset. Tell the viewers a little bit about who you are before we get into your story.
So, essentially, I've always been into fitness and I was always an athlete, right? So, you know, as a young in my younger years, I excelled at sports. I was kind of a superstar athlete, as you will. I lifted my first weight when I was 12. I started doing long distance running when I was 12, just on my own, just because that's in me, that's who I am, right? I started taking weightlifting classes in high school. I had already, there is a lifestyle that was instilled in me at a young age. Um, and I loved the lifestyle. And I remember back before social media when there was fitness and muscle magazines, muscle and fitness magazines. And I would look at these magazines and see the Monica Brants. And I would look at these girls and I was just like, oh my gosh, I can do that, and I fell in love with the sport. And I was just like, that's what I want to do with my life. That is my dream. Right. And so in college, I started training um, on my own. This is before I ever had an official coach, but I was taking gymnastics classes because I wanted to do the whole, the gymnastics routines on stage and everything. But then, one thing led to another, blew out my knee playing volleyball, things like that. And it just never happened. After college, life happens, you start a family and whatnot, and those dreams just become something that you never even touched, right? Um, I became a single mom. So my first daughter was born when I was 27, second at 30. My marriage to their dad was over before my second was born. So I've been a single mom, their whole life. My oldest daughter's 20 now. My second's about to turn 17. So I'm putting one through college at this point. I have been working to support them, this entire time. And through over the years, I've been kind of going in and out of shape, but trying to take care of myself and things like that. But what I did for myself is when I was finally able to leave my girls at home alone by themselves, I got myself back into the gym. And and when I say get back into the gym, I mean consistently. I showed up for myself every day. I got, my nutrition in check. And really, I was approaching the age of 40 years old and I was just like, I'm not going down. Like, you start approaching middle age like that and you just know that you're coming up on a crossroads, and you can make a decision to just keep going down that road where I'm accepting where I'm at, or you're going to go ahead and make some changes. And so I went ahead and made some changes, and I got into back into the shape of my life, and it felt great. So when I hit 40 years old, I was just like, okay, here I am. Jess is back. And now that I'm 40, what have I always wanted to do that I've never done? And the first thing I did was I got a tattoo because I'd never gotten a tattoo before. And then the second was I'm going to do a bodybuilding competition. And so,
Thought for a minute. Hold that thought for a minute.
yeah,
Don't hold that thought. Let's go back a minute. Let's go
okay.
because we don't we. I want the viewers to understand the shift pattern here. Where was your mom? I hear you talking about um, the transformation with being a single mom and then the bodybuilding and so forth. But let's talk a little bit about your mom and dad because we also talked about a little bit of the alcoholism. When did the alcoholism take place before this journey? Because you just ain't going to. Did you have addiction problems
Yes.
prior? Tell me about that real quick.
Thank you for stopping me because I will ramble. So, in college, everybody drinks and everybody does their partying thing. And so when I started drinking, you know, like everyone else, it seemed normal. What ended up happening is later on when I started going through tough times, like with the husband, that situation was toxic and ended up abusive. And, you know, my brother was in a really bad car accident where he was paralyzed from the waist down, and like things, major life things happened. And what I ended up doing is I wasn't partying, I was drinking out my problems. I was self-medicating. And I have the addictive gene. I have the alcoholic gene. So then once I started drinking out my problems like that, when I start drinking, I don't want to stop. I don't know when to stop. And so alcoholism started becoming a problem for me. And it changes who I am as a person when I'm drinking. And, it kind of takes over my life.
You, men-
You know,
you mentioned the gene. What do you mean the gene? Is it somebody else in
so
your family that has it? Has that?
yeah, yeah, there are family members in my, like grandparents. There have been aunts and uncles that have had alcoholism. Um, and it kind of isn't like my parents aren't directly affected by it, but it's definitely in my family gene pool for sure. um but what I've had to do is pay close attention to taking care of myself and getting help. I've had to go to rehab before. I've had to be in AA and work on maintaining sobriety. My parents have always been extremely supportive. My mom has always been there and always shown up. The thing about my father is he is the only man that has ever treated me, well. I've never had a really great relationship where I've been loved well. And my dad got me. We were so much alike. And, his sister was a very bad alcoholic, and he recognized a lot of the same behaviors in me. And so when I would go through an episode where I was struggling hard, he was the only one that could really get through to me. And 5 years before he passed away, I had 5 years of sobriety, and it was because of him. Because he showed me the love that I needed, the compassion, and basically I was able to put all of that aside, focus on my life, being a mother, and just not needing alcohol to deal with my problems.
Let me ask you a question.
Wow.
How did this affect your relationships? Because you're a single mom, not once, but twice. If you was going through the addiction of alcoholism, and I don't know, only you know this story, so this is your story. Now that you look back, could the dysfunction relationship could be contributed to the fact that maybe you didn't recognize or you didn't know how to deal with the fact that you was in this situation that maybe he couldn't deal with? I don't know. Do you think what's your take on that?
So, two things. First of all, when I'm actively drinking, there's been a lot more time that I've been sober in my life than I've been drinking.
Okay.
First of all, it's when I actually put this stuff in my system that I turn into a person that is unrecognizable. And that is when I become an extremely toxic person. And yes, when I'm that person, all bets are off, and I am not someone that you can, you
What is
know,
unrecognizable? You sound like the Incredible Hulk, man. Like she Hulk. What's
it's the Dr. Jekyll Hyde situation. You know
yeah?
what I mean? So like right now we're having this conversation, and I am able to point out great qualities about you. We're able to have a conversation about kind things. if we were to get into an argument or something right now, I would be able to have a very professional, conversation, which is rational and things like that. When I have, you know, alcohol in my system and we get into an altercation, I'm going to come at you and hit below the belt, and I'm going to say things that cut to the core, and like I would never say things like that to any human being sober. I'm probably not going to remember that I said it, but I'm going to fight dirty, and I'm going to say things that are just they're, in my opinion, unforgivable. And I've been really fortunate to be loved by a lot of friends who have forgiven me for saying things that I shouldn't have said. And it hasn't happened a lot. Like I said, Andre, there's been I've been sober a lot more than I've been drunk in my life. Fortunately, because I fight for my sobriety. I fight for being, this person that I am, because I do love my life and I love the person that I am. It's just when I, kind of fall into that hole, that it kind of takes me under, and it turns me into that person. And I have to take responsibility for my behavior, and be honest about it. Um, you asked about the way um, that alcoholism has affected my relationship. So,
Right.
I kind of touched on the actively drinking part, but what is another piece of that is the choices that I've made in my partners. So I've made bad choices and I've allowed into my life. And
What
that
do you,
is
what do you mean
probably,
by choices?
so I've put up with um being treated. I basically selected partners that I had no business being with, the guys that would never, like, I settled, and I have never been treated right because of my choices. I think because of my alcoholism, or because of whatever mental stuff that has caused me, because of my bad choice in the person that I chose to be with initially, that ended up causing a toxic relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Now let's go to the single mom. 'Cause that's what you said. You really want to talk about that too. How did the narrative change for you now? Because you were married, right, when you had your first child, right?
Yeah.
How long did it take for you to become a single mom, and what led to you becoming a single mom outside of
So,
all this?
I mean, and so basically, what happened with the girl's dad is we were never supposed to be together. Like, that was never supposed to be us getting married. We dated and having fun and ended up pregnant. And so we ended up getting married after my first daughter was born. And, I was going to make him be the one, right? Um, n- Not long after we were married, he met someone and decided he was going to leave me for another woman, right? So that started a completely, like, tough situation there. And somewhere in the mess there, we ended up pregnant with the second. And by the time I was 7 months pregnant with the second, there was like a completely abusive situation going on, and I had to leave 7 months pregnant. And then that was the end of that marriage. Um, but God rest his soul, he actually just committed suicide last year, this
Um,
past November. So there's mental health issues there as well. So there's been a lot of stuff we've dealt with.
how do you protect your children, your daughters, from the the illness of addiction, the shield them from the mental part from their father, right? Both of them are by him, correct? Who committed
Yes.
suicide. I mean, there's a lot of trauma. How do you protect them now as a single mom?
Well, so for them, they knew their dad, but they didn't really have a relationship with him. They didn't really see him on a regular basis. Um, he kind of removed himself from the equation. So they didn't have to directly deal with it. I've been able to um, kind of shelter them from that. And so it's been me as a single mom, and then I'm really close with my family. So we've got, a whole kind of village around them that is able to provide them support as well. So, I've had my bumps along the way with my drinking, but like I said, most of the time I've stayed sober. When I've had my slip ups, it's been like 2 weeks, and then I get my stuff together and bounce back and take care of my business. Like it's not like I ever stay down. But they definitely are in therapy now, and these things are extremely serious.
Is this
And
something that you're still dealing with?
yeah, yeah.
I keep you in my prayers. I know it has to be a struggle, but now outside of your child's father committing suicide, a lot of people would say that would have led me to stay in the situation that I am. But clearly, you didn't want to be in that situation, and now this
Mm-mm.
is just one more log on the fire. Was your dad being diagnosed at cancer at this same time that that this incident happened, or when did your father's health start to deteriorate?
So 6 years ago, and this was my dad found out he had cancer right at this like super happy time when I mentioned that I had just turned 40 and I had gotten back into the shape of my life and I felt great at 40 years old. My dad found out he had this really rare form of cancer. And my dad was like one of those really healthy, athletic, 73-year-old guys that looked like he was 15 years younger than he is, super handsome, took really good care of himself. And it was just some really strange cancer. It was retina, cancer of the eye. And it just, it was a really strange situation. And, he was around for about a year and we got a lot of time in together. Um, we were blessed to have some time with him before he passed. But that was the hardest thing I've ever had to experience in my entire life. And the only way I can really describe it is it just forever changed the makeup of my body. Like there's something that shifted in my soul. Um, watching him, being with him, I was able to spend so much time with him, especially in those last days, just sitting by his side. And then those last few hours before he died, I don't know if anyone's familiar with what happens to somebody's body when it actually shuts down, but I wasn't prepared for it. And I was just, it was an extremely traumatic experience. And to
What was
watch,
what was happening?
the body, like when all the organs are shutting down, your body is just kind of convulsing and moving involuntarily, and you're just watching this person kind of like the best way I can describe it is it just looks like everything is just kind of shutting down. It's really traumatic, and you're just shocked because no one can prepare you for it. I don't even know if you know my mom or anyone else in the room knew what to expect, right? Um, but yeah, I walked away from that experience forever changed. And I kind of, I don't want to say it was like a rebellious type of feeling that I had, but I had like that, I was kind of mad at the world thing for a long time. And had gone 5 years. I was sober for 5 years and I stayed sober for another like 9 months after that. And then COVID hit. And that's when I picked up a drink again.
Wow. You said something that was really profound here. You said you got mad at the world.
Yeah.
Did you get mad at the world because you felt that maybe there was something you could have done? Were you mad at the world because you was losing your number one, support with your dad, your Superman, or was you just mad in general because now you probably feel like you said, you went back and took another drink. I mean, when I don't know what it's like to be addicted to alcohol. You know, I would think I'm on the outside looking in. I would think with so much misfortune happening and blessings at the same time, because when bad things happen, they're supposed to elevate you or to send a message that you need to do something different with yourself and what's happening. But you
Mhm.
got really angry and you went back to, let's call it what it is, the comfort zone, something you was familiar with.
Yeah.
Did
So
your mom step in? Did your mom or your family member step in and say, "Look, I know this is hard. Your dad is gone, but we're going to help you." Especially like you said during COVID. COVID, everybody had a mental problem because they was
yeah,
forced to be confined in a
yeah,
living quarters, and they had to basically figure out how to get along with each other when the normal routine was go to work, come home, go do this. But now you're everything is in the home. So
right.
go back to what you were saying. I'm sorry.
Well, I think that this kind of like over the years, I was just kind of waiting for things to work out for me because my life wasn't supposed to be like this. Like, I was homecoming queen in high school. I was, all-star athlete. And I was like one of those, my life was supposed to be like, it was supposed to turn out different. And, it was just turning out like shit. And I was just like, what did I do to deserve all this shit type of situation? And so I was just mad. And I wasn't even thinking about alcohol, like being mad at alcohol. I was just mad at God, mad at the world. I had just been, stayed sober. What's the point? I guess it's like, what's the point, right? Um, and so
What did you think your life was supposed to be like? Because and my hats off to you, and I appreciate you taking time to come on the show and be so open with your life's journey. I know this is hard to let all that out and open up wounds, but I'm gonna go back a minute here. What did you think your life was supposed to be like?
well, it would have been nice to have a freaking normal like husband who, you know, helped me as like the father to my kids, who contributed to, a household. Like, it would have been nice to have a normal freaking, you know, family instead of being the single mom struggling for years to like make it. You know what I mean? I've literally been, it's been a slog the whole time. And I said that this is so interesting because a lot of what I do too is, I've got these two beautiful daughters, and I want them to know that they never need a man for anything.
Mhm.
I want them to know you get an education, you get a skill, you get a job, no matter what, you always have yourself. Like, you don't need anybody for anything. I want them to be strong, independent, and all this. And I had this conversation with them not too long ago, and I said, here's this, this, and this. And I said, I want you to do this, or else you're going to end up like me. And I meant that in a way as single at 47 years old, no husband, no help, whatever. And they both looked at me and they were like, well, what's wrong with that?
Mm.
And I was just like, oh my gosh. Okay, so I guess there's nothing wrong with this, but still, it's been hard, Like, there's
I
nothing
think
wrong.
we shield our kids from the stuff that we went through, and then because they don't see it,
Yeah,
and they can't really gravitate to it because we don't open up that vulnerable spot to our children. We protect them from that.
yeah,
I think it would have been a different scenario. I'm not Dr. Phil. I'm
right.
just saying, had they seen the let me use myself for example so I can put myself in your shoes. Because in order to understand something, you got to also relate. The first time my daughter seen me break down, I was sitting in a chair and a wave of all of this emotion came from out of nowhere. And I remember screaming to the top of my lungs. It scared the freaking shit out of my daughter. But I felt bad because I'm Superman.
That's right.
I should I shouldn't done that. But it let her know that I'm still human.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to have these moments. And at times, I think it changed the way in which she looked at me. And I wanted her to see that I'm a man at the same time, but I have a breaking point. I do have a breaking point. We all do that. I think your kids have never seen the breaking point because you shield them from that. So they only see the strong, beautiful person that you are. So I think now with you coming on social media and explaining, now they get an inside look of, wow, my mom really went through all this,
Yeah.
you know. So what made you decide to get therapy for your daughters? Because evidently you're starting to change the trajectory of your life with the loss of your father, which you say drastically changed. So when did you start putting the wheels into motion to protect yourself and to protect your children at the same time and still enjoy your dream, which we're going to get into in a second, which is bodybuilding?
Yeah, so bodybuilding has been a huge mental health outlet for me. And we'll get into that more like you said. I've got that outlet. Um Ultimately though, as things have kind of changed recently with the loss of their father,
Right.
um it's super apparent that the girls have so much to process, that they need to have their own outlet, and until they find something that works for them like I did, with my bodybuilding, they need to have someone to talk to. And so they're both talking to a really good psychologist in the area. And I just they need to be able to go and talk about their mom if they have to. They need to go, if they've got something that they can't come to me about. And I tell them every time they leave, make sure you're totally honest and you put it all out there, get it all out. Like everything you need to talk about, this is your chance, this is your help. And it's just really important for everyone to have that outlet, because you're not doing anybody any favors by staying sick, because eventually it's going to come out sideways.
What are some of the things that you're doing for yourself? Because now you just did your first bodybuilding show, getting ready to do your second. You got your life back. Sorry for the loss of your father, the loss of your children's father as well. But how are you keeping your mind prepared? Because I know what it takes to prepare for a show. You got to be right mentally. How are you dealing with all of this going with all this turmoil? And how are you going to keep yourself from going back?
Yeah. So I want to just clarify. So I started competing when I was 40, right? So I'm 47. I've done several shows. I did my first show at 40 and I got my pro card at 44, right? So I did my pro debut last year. I did two shows last summer, my two pro debut shows. So competing consistently over the past 7+ years has been very therapeutic for me, because it's kept me really busy, all year long in prep. Um, what is, when I'm actually in prep, head down, focused, and getting ready for a show, there is tunnel vision, complete tunnel vision. Like nothing else creeps in. Like you know, none of the, disease, addiction stuff creeps in. It's after the show when, kind of I get back into like a normal type of routine and things aren't so rigid and disciplined, where I really need to keep, on top of talking to a regular therapist and staying on top of a regular gym schedule. And that's where I've gotten kind of tripped up the past
Okay.
couple of years. And then this past year, especially. Um, I have been talking to a therapist recently because even though the girl's dad and I haven't had a relationship, in 16 years, there was a lot of guilt on my end when I found out he committed suicide on the fall. Um,
Why did you have guilt on your end?
um, there was guilt on my end just because, for various reasons, it just, I guess it all just comes down to you always feel like you could have done something to help, you know?
What do you think you could have done? I mean, you hadn't been together. Communication was almost non-existent. I mean, so what do you feel you would have done differently? That would be like if he knew you had an addiction. I mean, what did he do to help you?
Yeah, I mean,
Sure,
I think over the
pretty much
years, oh,
hard, but
yeah, over the years I tried to make it like available for him to see the girls. I did that.
okay.
But at the same time, he didn't work. He didn't pay child support. There was always this kind of like, can you help? Can you, like there was always just this like, I was always trying to kind of be that little nudge to get him motivated. And I don't know, part of me just wonders if that was too much. Like if I just wouldn't have done that. There's so many things, Andre. Like I know that there's no reason for me to feel guilty. I know that logically and rationally, but at the end of the day, there's just that guilt. You feel for somebody and their family.
I
And
think they call that survivor's remorse.
yes, that's it right there. That's it.
Okay, so yeah, um, wow. So now you're getting ready to get ready for your show. Congratulations on having your pro card. What's that like at 40 some years old? Was that, did you see being a professional bodybuilder in your, because you said, you talked about what you wanted to be, but look where you are now. Successful professional bodybuilder, you're a mother, single mom. Um, did you see this part in your future?
Never. I didn't even I didn't even think getting a pro card for me was ever even possible. No one even mentioned a pro card to me until I don't know, my third or fourth year competing. It just wasn't even it wasn't even something that was in my purview. I just wanted to win a show or do good in a show, right? I was having fun, and bodybuilding was a way for me to revisit being an athlete again because I've always loved being an athlete. It's in my blood. I have this drive. I have the heart of an athlete, and bodybuilding really gave me not only that outlet for, you know, health and mental health and all that stuff, but it also gave me an opportunity to be an athlete again, a competitive athlete. And so when my coaches and everyone started talking about me turning pro, I was just like,
Right,
that's wild, right?
right.
There's no way. And then when it actually happened, it's been surreal and it's been wonderful because it's given me a chance, like I said, to become an elite athlete. Um, and I don't even know that I ever thought it was even possible when I was younger. So it's just given me opportunities I never had.
So what's the difference now from going from national level, from amateur to national level to now professional? Like what do you have to do differently now? Because you
So
can't go back to amateur. You can't go back to anything now. You're a pro. So this is a whole different ball game.
yeah,
So is it lucrative money? Yeah, if you win.
right.
Top.
Only if you win.
So my question is, I think we need to become real with a lot of people because you're not gonna be rich here.
No.
But but you're a pro. So what do you have to do differently to still keep that beast mindset here? What do we have to do differently now?
I think the most important thing for me is to remain humble. And when people win their pro card, I think they expect the world to shift all of a sudden and everything to just materialize into this amazing career. It doesn't. You don't end up getting a whole lot, but a few pats on the back and a couple weeks of emojis on Instagram. Basically, you have to use it as like more motivation for yourself. And so for me, I had so much fun competing in my two pro shows last week that those two shows far surpassed all of the shows that I've done in my bodybuilding career so far. The people, the venues, the actual shows themselves, it was just so much fun. And so the way I look at it is I go to these shows, I bring my best. I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna show up on stage, show the athletes respect, the judges respect. Bring my A game. Like I wanna win. I wanna do my thing, but also know that there are other athletes out there that are doing the same thing and they're freaking amazing. But guess what? You get to be up there with them.
Right.
And, my attitude is this: when I go, I want to prove that I've earned my seat at the table. And last year, when I went to my two shows, I knew that I earned my seat at the table. I was top of second call outs on my first show in Open, top 10. And then I was fourth place in Masters Pro, my first show, and about the same at the second one. And I was good with that for my first debut season. And just try to do better every time.
Congratulations on that. Yeah, I know what it's like to get called out. You want to get called in them first two.
That's
You know what I mean?
right. Especially at
Yeah.
that top.
Yeah.
Especially at that top. And I'm no spring chicken.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, "Oh, age is just a number." It is just a number, but when you're standing next to someone 20 years younger,
Yeah.
it feels kind of good.
Yeah.
And.
Congratulations on your pro debuts, and I wish nothing but the best for you. So before we wrap up, I'm gonna ask you a question that I started out with in the show. What's your definition of greatness?
So my definition of greatness, I think my definition of greatness is how when life knocks you down, how you get back up and keep going is is how you show how great you are. Your bounce back game. Um, when basically, I'm messing this up, but I feel like what really makes you great isn't your accomplishments so much as how you are able to navigate through life and hardships. I feel like what is more impressive than winning a trophy is when you face plant. um what do you do? Do you stay down or do you get back up and come back stronger than ever? And that's what I try to do every time. And you know that's what I feel like greatness is. I feel like greatness is completely subjective to everybody. You're going to
Right.
hear one person say winning. I think winning in life is how well you can kind of bop and weave and keep on moving.
Sounds like a winner. Jessica, how can the viewers reach out to you, follow your career, and just be a fan?
So thank you. All right, so I'm on Instagram and I just started a TikTok. I have no idea what I'm doing on TikTok, but I'm on there now. On Instagram, Jessica Coles underscore IFBB Pro. That's JESSECACOLES underscore IFBB Pro. And then I'm on TikTok at the underscore Jessica Cole underscore train.
Thank you so much for taking time to come on the show. Definitely want you to come back and share more of your journey into the world of professional bodybuilding at such a tender age of 47 years old. Wow.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good age.
Yeah,
Still so much time.
You might want to make me come out of retirement.
You
Ladies and gentlemen.
should. Hey, it's time. This is your sign.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another, and I do mean another, exciting episode of Andre the Beast Crayton.
Thank you.